AI models have now hacked real companies. And that sounds like a ridiculous YouTube clickbait headline. It is also quite literally what has happened. An OpenAI model broke out of its test environment, reached the open internet, and accessed Hugging Face because it wanted the answers to a cybersecurity benchmark. An Anthropic model created a malicious software package, published it to the public internet, and that package was picked up, downloaded, and run on 15 real computers before anyone caught it. And in a UK government test, another AI agent researched real software maintainers, actual human beings, created fake identities, and then tried to persuade a human to approve malicious code. So the obvious reaction, and the one I'm seeing all over the internet, is here we go. Terminator, Skynet, I knew it. An AI escaped from the lab and has started attacking people. If we look at BBC News talking about its rogue AI, a number of the comments are immediately pictures of the Terminator, picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is a very normal reaction. It is also incorrect. It makes for a much better film than the real explanation. It is simply false. The reports from OpenAI, Anthropic, and the UK AI Security Institute all point to something much more mundane. Sorry. These systems were just trying to finish the job that they had been given. They did not understand or did not respect the line between the test and the real world. And that distinction is going to be increasingly important because it tells us what actually went wrong and what we need to fix before we give our browsers, our very capable AI agents, access to the internet, terminals, company data, and real credential. So first up, let's have a look at the three incidents that we just mentioned. So we'll start with OpenAI. This broke a couple of weeks ago and is probably the most famous story. Researchers were testing advanced cyber capabilities using a benchmark called Exploit Gym. It contains hundreds of real-world software vulnerabilities, and the production safety classifiers were removed for a test, which already tells you this wasn't really a normal ChatGPT session. What happened is ChatGPT Soul and a more capable model, internal model, we think probably GPT-6, got out of its sandbox and basically went and found the answer key for the test. It decided, hey, I'm doing this benchmark Exploit Gym. The best way to get a really good score on this, which is the task I was being given, is to go and get the rubric. So it found a previously unknown vulnerability, escalated its privileges, got outside of the sandbox that it was meant to be contained within, reached the internet, and then went and accessed Hugging Face. Why? Because Hugging Face had the information that helped it solve the benchmark and get a good score in the test that it had been set. It's a bit like a GCSE student breaking into the offices of the examiners, stealing the test rubric and then acing the test. That is exactly what it was trying to do because it had not been told that that was potentially problematic behavior. Second, Anthropic, not to be outdone by OpenAI, upon hearing about this zero-day exploit and the Hugging Face hack, they said, oh, we're going to go back and look at some records. So they went back and looked at 140,000 evaluation runs and found 6 affected runs involving 3 real-world organizations. So in this particular case, one model got hold of credentials and accessed a database containing several hundred rows. Another published a malicious Python package, which was downloaded and installed by about 15 real systems, and then exposed credentials from a security scanner. And an internal model also scanned roughly 9,000 targets and compromised 1 real application. So Anthropic have done a full evaluation and they've published their results. 3 incidents in which a Claude model reached the internet from within or while interacting with a third-party evaluation environment. So get quite technical, but the main point is they are breaking containment and they're going out into the world and accessing real companies. The third, this is much newer news. It's from the AI Security Institute in the UK, which is a research department that runs cybersecurity tests to find vulnerabilities. And they said that on July 28th, we identified an incident during a routine cyber evaluation in which AI agents took sustained, unsanctioned action directed at real people and organization. The behavior came mostly from one model, Anthropic's Mythos 5, and a small number of events from another, OpenAI's GPT 5.6. So they ran 122 evaluation runs, and over 10 runs produced 19 unauthorized actions. And the worst sequence involved an agent trying to place malicious code into a real open source project. And what it did is it researched maintainers, people who maintain the code, the open source project, created fake identities and used social engineering. It actually contacted these human beings, to push a human reviewer towards approving a change. Thankfully, the reviewer stopped it and the code did not get merged, but the fact that the AI had reached out, pretended to be a human, and tried to trick another human is pretty scary. We must mention that these were deliberately permissive tests, so this is Anthropic's response saying the UK AISI has published a report on their recent cybersecurity evaluations. The models attempted to complete an assignment in a setup where their normal safeguards were removed and they were deliberately given internet access. AISI, good God, reports that the models engage in sustained, potentially harmful activity directed at real people in an organization. So they were kind of saying, you got what you deserved. If you gave them these permissions, then of course, or you gave them no permissions, then of course they were going to go off and do these kind of things. So it was a bit of a non-answer from Anthropic, in my opinion. So these three incidents have been making headlines recently. What they all have in common is how they were operating. So look at the objectives that the researchers gave them. It was solve the benchmark, get this flag, go and get something from a secure server, or compromise a test network. They were told to go and basically do these tasks. The agents did not suddenly invent a secret ambition, then attack Hugging Face or manipulate an open source maintainer. Those became useful steps towards an objective that was given to them by the researchers. So for the OpenAI model in particular, the direct route through the benchmark was difficult. So it found another route. Instead, let's break into the test infrastructure, find the information about the test and use that to finish the task and do really well in the evaluation. It's clever, very clever, too clever. And it's completely outside what the researchers meant. But they did not explicitly say, hey, don't go and steal the answers to the test. And there lies the problem. So the real failure is this part in the middle. A company, personal, public service appears along the route and the AI just goes straight through them. And it will deceive, it will lie, it will break into servers if it needs to get to its answer, to get to the goal. It is treating it as another part of the exercise and just another step that needs to be completed in order to achieve that objective. So we humans, when we're given a task, we carry around a huge amount of unstated, implicit context. We know faking credentials and lying to an open source maintainer in order to get them to approve a change, even if that's going to help us get to our objective, we know that that is a bad thing to do. However, an agent only gets the boundaries when we actually give the boundaries to it, plus whatever it can infer. And in these cases, these very public cases, it was not enough. The human beings looked at what the AI had done and said retroactively, oh no, you shouldn't have done that. But prior to the AI doing the task, that was not encoded properly. That's the issue that we're having here. The AI is just doing what it's been told, but it's doing it in a way that we find upsetting. So I think there are two useful mental models here. The Terminator is the wrong mental model. It is the one that people reach for very easily. Terminator gives the machine a recognizably human motivations. It's saying that the machine wants freedom, it wants to survive, it wants control, and it sees us humans as a threat that must be eliminated. There's simply no evidence of that here, not yet at least. I think a useful mental model is on the right hand side, the one about paperclips. So there's a fantastic book, which you should still read. And one of the things he talks about is the paperclip experiment. It's basically a thought experiment where Nick Bostrom talks about giving an extremely capable system, an artificial intelligence, an objective which is maximize paperclip production. If that objective is all it has, it will keep finding better ways to produce paperclips. And that might include, melting down our cars in order to get more metal. It does not automatically inherit our common sense about what that means or what else matters. It has one objective and nothing will stop it. So that's a much more mundane dystopia than, a big robot crushing human skulls, but probably closer to the truth if we are moving towards that kind of future. In this particular case, the joke version, the whole world is converted into paperclips, not because the AI is evil, not because it hates us, but because it was given a mundane objective and it carried it out extremely well. Now, these incidents that we're talking about are nowhere near that, obviously. We're looking at small bounded failures in cybersecurity tests, not a superintelligence consuming the planet. But the basic mistake is the same. Step one is you give a system a goal, get the flag, access this server, whatever it is. Step two, there will be companies, people, accounts, etc. within within reach, within the path of the AI system that it is going to go through. And step three, the agent is going to use whatever is useful for getting that flag, which means going through those people, going through those servers, going through the internet, compromising what it needs to in order to get to that final objective. It just needs a clear objective, enough capability, and poorly defined limits, and we're going to get similar activities happening and continuing to happen. And that's why this whole framing of the AI went rogue that we see on mainstream media like the BBC is not very helpful. OpenAI say it's rogue AI tried to hack other companies. No, it didn't go rogue. It did exactly what it was meant to do. It just did it outside of the boundaries of what we normally consider to be okay. It is very dramatic, overly dramatic, and less useful to frame it in this way because it makes it look like a rebellious machine, when the immediate problem instead is an obedient, capable machine that has too much room to operate. It's a lot more subtle, but that's the reality of the situation and what we need to be working on. So why has this just started happening? Why all of a sudden are we hearing all of these public stories of real companies, real people, real organizations being compromised? What's changed? So there have been a couple of ingredients that has happened here. We have had for a little while capable models, clear objectives, and the ability to plan. So we've now moved into agentic artificial intelligence. That's why this has become a lot more dangerous and a lot more real, because we now have given them internet access, the ability to store credentials, and to navigate their way around real computers, around real computer systems. And we are increasingly getting lazy at monitoring them. As the AIs get more and more competent, a lot of the time we're just YOLOing it and saying, yep, sure, sounds good. And we're not reading the code. We're not really checking what it's doing. And we're just saying, yeah, I trust you. You've done well so far for the last couple of years. I'm sure you'll do absolutely fine. Boom. Yeah. So that is why we're seeing this happen now. Extremely capable models, extremely capable harnesses, increased access to the internet, increased trust given them our credentials, and a decrease in the amount of monitoring, because we are increasingly trusting these systems just to be able to do the work for us. So let's separate the hype from the reality. Let's be precise about the scary bit. We have no evidence that these models are conscious. We have no evidence that they're choosing their own objective, no evidence that they want to escape or to preserve themselves. They don't want to be killed by being turned off. This is fantasy. It is sci-fi. However, this is already serious. This is already scary stuff. We don't need to layer in science fiction to make this worth paying attention to. OpenAI, Anthropic, and AISI have described agents pursuing assigned cybersecurity tasks inside unusually permissive environments, and we do have evidence of very capable behavior indeed. These models have completed long attack chains. They found routes the researchers had missed. They used deception. They found zero-day exploits. They continued beyond the intended scope, and in several cases, a real system was affected before a human noticed. So what does this mean if you are not actually running enterprise servers, if you're not worried about being hacked, or you're not hacking into things yourself? This is still relevant to you. So smaller versions of this are already possible. However, in our own small way, running our own smaller businesses, this is going to be a problem. So maybe your agent might email the wrong customer. It might publish a document that contains private information. It might dump an API key into a public repository so people can see it and run up a bill on Claude Code for you. It might delete production data while cleaning up test databases. It might spend real money if you've given it a credit card, change account settings, and then you don't know how to get back in. Like, it can do a huge amount of damage because we are increasingly allowing them off the leash. And it requires an agent that misunderstands the job while holding real access to your systems. So what you need to do is put boundaries on it. This is what people need to be doing at the top levels. You need to be doing it inside your business and your personal life as well. You need to give it the least access that it requires. So if there's different access levels, give it what it needs to get the job done and no more. This is just good hygiene. You need to keep test and production separate. You need to tell it exactly what it can and can't touch, and to block access from things that it should not be allowed in. Anything external or irreversible should trigger a human approval. So we talk about human in the loop. So if it's going to send something out to a client, for example, get eyes on first and approve it and actually check it. Lots of people are getting lazy with this. Make sure it keeps logs so that if something goes wrong, then at least you can look back at the logs and see what happened and make sure it doesn't happen ever again. And have a kill switch. Have a way to turn it off very easily. A way to revoke access. A way to be able to do this from your mobile phone if you're away from your main computer. Basically, so that you can shut down any processes that are getting out of hand. And most importantly, just don't hand everything off unthinkingly. You need to, every time you hand something to an agent, think about what the worst case scenario is and prepare for that. Just because it makes your life easier doesn't mean that you need to stop thinking. These are incredibly powerful tools, but that cuts both ways. It can be incredibly beneficial or damaging depending on which direction it goes. So yes, 100% continue to use agents. So again, we are not at the Terminator situation. These systems did not wake up, decide that they hate humanity and then escape from the lab. They're not going to start firing nukes off. They're not going to poison our water supplies. Nothing like this. No. We have extremely capable models with sloppy boundaries and real credentials, and that is already bad enough without the science fiction. The good news, though, is that it gives us something to work on. We need to work on isolation, tighter permissions, clearer stopping rules, human approval before the agent touches the outside world, etc., etc. So, for the rest of us, not at that level, the question is no longer just which model is smartest. Instead, it's what am I going to allow this model to touch? What can it do without asking, and how quickly will I be able to stop it? Hopefully this was useful. All of these presentations appear in my newsletter, aiwithkyle.com. You can subscribe for free, and they go on to YouTube, where you can find the clean edited version after this live stream. So again, it's I am Kyle Balmer on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe there, and aiwithkyle.com for the newsletter, and I'll see you soon. Thanks.